Hello and good day to everyone attending SummerTeen 2015 and today's panel, Gaming in the Library. This is Heather Booth from the Thomas Ford Memorial Library in Western Springs, Illinois, your moderator, and I will be spending the next hour with you and our panelists. We'll try to save 10 minutes or so at the end of the webcast to take questions from our virtual audience. But before we go any further, I have a few housekeeping items to run through. First, make sure pop-up blockers are turned off. If you're experiencing technical problems, please use the red Q&A button on the audience console, and the webcast tech team will get to you as soon as possible. If your screen becomes locked due to local network congestion, try using F5 to refresh the webcast console. If you're on a Mac, use Command R. The slide presentation is available for download in the green Resources folder at the bottom of the menu dock. A certificate for continuing education credit is also available in the Resources folder and is labeled Certificate. Check for other resources there, and don't forget to visit our sponsors booth for more goodies and giveaways. This webcast will be archived and available for on-demand viewing in about 72 hours and will be accessible for the next 12 months. If you have any questions or comments for our panel, send those in anytime via the red Q&A box. We won't make it through all your questions today, so watch for a follow-up email in the next couple of weeks. You can also follow us on Twitter. You can find us at #SLJTeenLive. And now let's dig into our presentation. I'd like to introduce today's first speaker, Amanda Schiavulli.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Amanda Schiavulli. I'm the Education and Outreach Librarian at the Finger Lakes Library System. We have 33 libraries in central New York, and most of them are very, very rural. And I've implemented a great gaming program, and I've been doing gaming around my region and a couple of other regions in New York, trying to promote why it's important to have gaming. And one of my biggest struggles has always been trying to get everybody to buy into what gaming is. So my slides are from a larger presentation, so I'm going to run through them pretty quickly. I apologize if I talk too fast, but all these will be available, and I have lots of resources, and feel free to email me after. The first big obstacle we have is, why do we play? Well, playing is crucial to human development. It builds the ability to solve problems and develop creativity, resilience. You guys can read this all on your own. But one of the biggest things with gaming is that it helps grow strong, healthy bodies and reduces stress. I'm a big gamer myself, and that's what I do when I go home. It's a big stress release. A lot of people hear that games are just for boys or games are just for kids. For the interest of this presentation, I'm really going to focus on teens, but you can't really focus on teens without talking about adults. So this graph right here, I get a lot of my information from the Entertainment Software Association. They put out an annual report every year. So this is from 2014's annual report. The average game player is 31 years old. So those are your parents. Those are people who have been playing games their whole lives. Also, you want to look at gender. As you can see, the gender, it's split pretty much down the middle. Girls are playing games just as much as the boys are. Also, gaming has increased amongst gamers age 50 and older. So people have been playing games pretty much their whole lives. So you have to keep that in mind when we're dealing with gaming in children. So adults and games. Games have been linked to countering depression, improve mental health, increase socialization. Some video games nowadays is the only way some people actually communicate with each other. More creativity and reduce stress. Now, teens, there's 40 developmental assets for adolescents that have been developed by the Search Institute, and 6 of them can be adapted directly to gamers. Again, you can click on the links after the presentation. But one of the biggest things is planning and decision-making and self-esteem. The young person feels personal power for these characters in these games. And for those of you who aren't sure about League of Legends, it's the one game nowadays that everything is coming together in terms of scholarships. It's the world's largest gaming community, and it's the only game that has a scholarship nowadays. Some libraries are tapping into it. I think it's a great program to look into. It could be the next Minecraft. So here's just a slide that there are legit scholarships out there for gamers. And then again, you can't become a teen without being a child. So I like to use Angry Birds as my example for how games can help you question, predict, hypothesize, evaluate, and analyze. You need to use certain birds to do certain things. So that's a good example that everyone can pretty much relate to because of all the hype with it. And then again, there's the big push with early literacy, every child's ready to read. There is a lot of hype with screen time. So what we're trying to do is model positive behavior for screen time. So that way they're not becoming zombies. You're not just giving them tools to be on their own. Gaming is more about actively participating and playing with their children. So when you're talking about teens and kids, you want to incorporate the parents with it as well. And this is again from the Entertainment Software Association. 56% of parents are saying that video games are actually a positive part of their children's lives. And these are the top 5 reasons why parents play with their kids. It's fun for the whole family. They're asked to do it. And they like to game just as much as their kids do. So this is a great quote I like to keep in here, but this is just about how kids want to show their parents what they're doing. So a lot of the pushback that I usually get are that games are actively against books, when actually they're going hand in hand with books. This is a graphic from Everything Bad is Good for You, and I think it really breaks down the comparison with books and video games. Where books and video games both have effort and concentration, there's always a story, there's a lot of planning, it's mental exercise, but the last part is that I think is one of the most important parts, is where books have a predetermined outcome, and video games, the player's choice creates the outcome. By doing certain tasks, you can create your own world. There's thousands of endings to games, and you can never really find them all. Well, you can, but it takes some time. So a lot of folks tend to think that video games end up causing people not to read, which is not true. Reading levels in video games can range from anywhere from 2nd grade to a 12th grade reading level. And it's not actively replaced by video games, but it's a basic part of what it means to participate and play. Gamers are writing on websites. They're writing their own game reviews. They're reading reviews. They're writing fan fiction. They have forums. So it's a social event. It's not passive. And games are also interest-driven rather than required. You're not forcing kids to play games. They want to play them. So tap into what they want to help them learn. So when you're getting your staff and board involved, I found that that's one of the hardest parts of this. You do have to plan for a different type of collection. You have to plan that people are going to steal them, just like DVDs when they first started. So you have to, if you have the space, you want to keep them behind the desk. I know quick cases have become a big thing, and the vending machines, if your libraries can afford it. Patrons are going to complain about video games because they are expensive. You're looking between $10 and $60 for a good quality game. You can purchase them cheaply through different vendors such as GameStop or Amazon, where you can buy them pre-owned, and you don't really need to buy brand new games all the time. And also you want to think about your board too, like what is your mission? And setting reasonable loan periods is also vital when you're talking about video games. Some games are like 40-hour games, so you don't want to be sending them out for 2 days. You want to look at least a week. Or you want to make sure that you can take out either 1 or 2 at a time instead of like 5 or 10 like you would with DVDs. You have to make sure it's within your policy, so everyone should have pretty good policies and clear guidelines. And you want to look at the ratings and intellectual freedom. Now, the MPAA and ESRB, they are private advisory codes, so again, they have no real legal standing in libraries. But that being said, you want to make sure that you're putting them in the correct places in your library. You're not going to put adult books into the children's room and vice versa. And you don't want to shelve all your video games in one section. You want to make sure you're dividing them up between the target audience of it. So everybody has gamers, and you want to look at who your gamers are. Do you have more kids, more families, more teens, more adults when you're purchasing the collections? You want to know if your gamers are casual. You want to know what types of games that they're playing on what devices. Are they playing on consoles, handhelds, tablets? Are they sports? Are they playing retro games? Think of things like that. And just like books, games have all different types of genres. So again, knowing your audience, figuring out what they want, ask them questions. And last, I just want to conclude my segment with what we're currently doing at the Finger Lakes Library System. We have programs, systems, and accessories that our member libraries can borrow for programming. And then on the right-hand side here, we have games that our patrons can borrow throughout our library system. And this is how circulation has been doing as of 2014. We started playing it safe with just a few like E for Everyone Wii games, and we've discovered that that's not really what circs. So nationally, we're having problems with circulation of tangible materials. So I've discovered that games are actually doing even better than our DVD collection and is almost on par with our Overdrive collection. When I made this graph, we had 323 games averaging about 7,200 circs. I ran the stats yesterday. We currently have 589 games in our collection with 10,653 circs. So they're averaging about 19 circs per game. So that's just a little enthusiasm for gaming. And again, as I mentioned, I have lots and lots of resources, so please feel free to explore them. There's our website there, and my little plug for Facebook. And we're going to do questions at the end, so thank you very much for your time.
Thanks so much. We do have a couple questions here. Somebody's wondering if you circulate accessories, and if you do, how do you do that?
We circulate. We have a couple Wii wheels and a couple of the Wii guns. We just attach a barcode to them using those carabiners. And then they just return just like a regular book or movie or whatnot.
Okay. And then I think you addressed a little bit of this about how you secure your games. What's your method?
How we do what with the games? I'm sorry.
Oh, how you secure them, what you do to mitigate theft.
It's up to our member libraries how they secure them. Most of them are small, so they do keep them in CD binders behind the desk. Some of them are using quick cases. They've discovered that the TABLETOP stickers don't really work because people will just walk out and the alarm goes off and they just get waved through anyway. So the most secure method we've discovered is keeping them behind the desk or the vending machines. I know some libraries have invested in those.
Okay. There are more questions coming in, but we do want to get to the other presenters. I'm going to end with asking something that I've been wondering based on your graph, and is what is it that you attribute that huge spike in circulation to? It looks like is that just changing the collection?
Not playing it safe, giving them exactly what they want. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Any of these questions, I see several still coming in that haven't been answered yet. They're going to be answered in follow-up emails, so check your email when you get it from SLJ. All right, we're going to move on. Our next presenter here, we have two presenters for the next session. We have Lindsey Tomsu and Keyahna Wood.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Lindsey Tomsu. I am the teen librarian at the La Vista Public Library in La Vista, Nebraska. I also have with me today Keyahna Wood. She has been the secretary of our Teen Advisory Board since November of 2010. She'll be speaking a little bit at the end of the presentation, and we're here today to talk to you a little bit about the life-size games that we have done, particularly our life-size Arkham Horror. So basically, you have to start at the beginning, and that involves what exactly is Arkham. Basically, Arkham is what I like to call a complex board game. It is manufactured by an awesome gaming company called Fantasy Flight. It is based on the Cthulhu mythos horror short stories by H.P. Lovecraft. The game itself can play up to 8 players, and it's complex because it involves a lot of teamwork, a lot of reading skills, a lot of mathematical calculations, and a lot of critical thinking. We first introduced this game to our teens during our lock-in at the end of the 2012 summer program, and they got really, really into it, and we started hearing, when can we play it again? When can we play it again? And the problem with the complex board games is that because there's so much involved, they tend to be a little bit more expensive. I mean, Arkham, the base board, retails for about $80, and an average game can take 4 to 6 hours to play. So, we didn't have the type of funding to be able to just go out and buy a copy, so we looked into grant possibilities. And so we did a Youth Excellence Grant through our Nebraska Library Commission to actually begin our Arkham Horror Gaming Club. And we partnered with our local comic book and gaming shop, Ground Zero, and he gave us an excellent discount on all of the materials that we needed to get the club up and going. So how the life-size version of this came about was basically during the spring break learning session that we had in April of 2013. A lot of the teens, came. We had about 15 to 20 teens that day, and they started to basically just learn the basics of the game. And, I mean, that took about, 2 hours, and then they spent the rest of the day playing. Since it was held during spring break, we basically did the program for about 10 hours long, where they ended up learning. There are a lot of rules that can sometimes be confusing during, such a complex game, but oftentimes what you find is that the more you play, the easier it becomes to learn everything. And so they really, really enjoyed it. And it's reading. There we go. And so they really, really enjoyed Arkham, and we usually meet monthly to play. And then it was the following summer in 2013 that the idea of the life-size one came about, and it was inspired by one of our girls, Sarah, who had an insane idea. That summer, I had learned about the Yalza Dollar General Teen Read Week grant, and the theme that year was It Came from the Library. And so my teams decided to get together and come up with some type of idea for something we could do for Teen Read Week that year. And so they ended up saying, hey, it's kind of a spooky theme. Let's do like a whole week-long celebration of Arkham and Lovecraft and all this awesome stuff. So we ended up coming up with ideas to do, various crafts like Miskatonic University T-shirts, Necronomicon paper crafts, create a character workshop where they learned how characters were created for the game and could actually create their own that they could actually play with. And then Sarah had this amazing idea. And she asked basically, hey, a few years ago we had done a life-size Candyland for the kids. Could we do a life-size Arkham? And the room just got super silent, and then everybody started screaming because it was the most amazing idea that they'd ever heard of. And so we thought about it, and we're like, it's probably going to take a lot of work, but the TAB promised to do everything that they could to help actually get this going. So we applied for the grant, we were awarded it, and so then that's when the preparation began. Usually during our school year, we don't actually begin our programs until October, so we thought we'd wait till Teen Read Week and kick off the thing with the celebration. And so we spent most of August and September preparing for the life-size game. The brainstorming was the biggest part. We had to look at all the 26 locations that are on the board game and figure out how those were going to be life-size. We had to think, how are the cards going to be made life-size? The characters, they fight monsters, how we were going to do that. Costumes, are the teams going to come dressed up, What kind of props would we need to make the locations come alive and seem real? And out of everything that we need, could anything be donated or borrowed for the event? And out of the things that couldn't be donated, how much would it actually officially cost us? Luckily, because it is a horror-based game, and October is Teen Read Week, luckily the stores are full of tons of Halloween supplies, so that made everything better. So during our preparation, one of the things we did was we actually contacted Fantasy Flight and told them about what we were doing. Luckily, they're headquartered only about a 5-hour drive away from us, And unfortunately, their actual Arkham convention was the same weekend, but they ended up sending us about $300 worth of merchandise for our gaming club, and because they just thought this was the most amazing thing ever. That teens were playing Arkham, that they loved it so much they wanted to do it life-size. They just thought it was crazy. And so, that was an amazing, opportunity for us. One of the first big things that we had to do was on the game board, there are 8 otherworld portals. And so the teams decided that they wanted to actually make those life-size paintings. So they spent about 2 weeks actually drawing and painting these 6-foot tall, representations of the other worlds that we could hang on the walls of our meeting room. Like I said, there were 8 in total, and they were made out of basically 3 pieces of poster board that were taped together and then could fold up for easy storage. That was really cool. The next big thing that they tackled was the monsters that everybody got to fight. Unfortunately, there are some monsters that life-size would be bigger than a building, so we had to trim it down a little bit. So all of our human monsters, like witches and zombies and cultists, were made out of dollar store Barbie dolls. And then the more creative monsters were made out of other Dollar Tree stuffed animals. On the left there is Katie's Hound of Kinderos. So it's just a little dinosaur she cut up in the mouth, put in jagged teeth to make him all, And then the other kinds that we ended up using were, little monkeys, little teddy bears, anything that we could find that would pretty much represent one of the monsters. Quick slide here. As you can see on the left, that's a Chthonian. Simple cardboard tube and some monkey legs makes a squid-looking guy. And there's a little Shugus on the right. He's basically a multi-eyed, tentacled kind of dude. After we had all the monsters made, we had to then do all the cards and tokens for the game. And Fantasy Flight has a wonderful Arkham Horror wiki that we were able to get all the images from. We just blew them up, printed them off. Then we had to cut them out. We taped them front and back of the card to corresponding construction pages and then laminated them so they'd be able to be reused in the future and got all that good to go. The bottom picture is the huge pile of all of our stuff. Then, of course, the actual day of the event came, and so we ended up having lots of props to set up, which was pretty insane. One of my TAB members had already graduated, so she came and helped me actually set up the rooms. You can see our progress as we're going there. One of the things we did ahead of time to save time during the actual gameplay was that all the teams told me what character that they wanted to be, and so I was able to draw all of their, like money that they'd start with, weapons that they'd start with to fight monsters. So we had all of that done ahead of the actual day that they'd play. And so once again, just a few more little pictures to scroll through that kind of show you what all went involved in this. Some close-ups of some of our actual locations. We've got the science building there on the left with the skeleton, beakers, brains, vintage sciencey diagrams, general store. And we've got the curiosity shop, and then the team's favorite, which was the river docks. And we've got the newspaper location and the asylum. We actually had a straitjacket because the character went insane. They had to go to the asylum, and so they had to actually put on the straitjackets until they got their sanity back. And then another little close-up of Tibbs Roadhouse, which is a fancy diner. And then the train station. Keyahna's own dad ended up letting us borrow his toy train to use. The day of, the teams actually, because they knew who the character was that they were going to play, they actually did cosplay too, coming dressed up as a character. We've got Mary as a cultist and Sarah as a explorer scientist. We've got Pierre there as a handyman and Elliot as a shaman, and he actually shaved his head for the parts. That's how dedicated he was. And last, we've got Haley dressed up as her favorite character, who's an Indiana Jones archaeologist type of guy. And then the gameplay itself was super, super fun. As you can see there, if a player got arrested, we had them actually go to the jail and get handcuffed to a chair and wear the prison outfit, which was really, really cute. Obviously, lots of the teams going around different locations, having a bunch of fun. They had big dice to roll to fight the monsters and everything. It was, super, super fun overall. Probably had about 20 teams total. And basically, we've got lots more pictures here. The last slide has an actual link to the photo album where you can see all the pictures from our preparation to, the day of, all that kind of stuff. But overall, basically, I believe that anybody can do life-size games at their library. You don't have to be as super elaborate as ours. I mean, my tab, when we did Arkham and we also recently did the Game of Life, my tab's idea is you go big or you go home, so they really wanted everything as realistic as possible. But there are mini games like Clue and Pac-Man and Hungry Hippos that you can probably do for like $50 to $100, if not more. And one of the great things that I always like to tell everybody about, such big programs as this is there might be a bit of an initial investment cost-wise to actually do these, but most of the stuff you can store in a box and you can redo the games as many times as your teams want for little cost again. So that's always an awesome element, basically. And so I'm going to just hand it over to Keyahna real quick. She just has one little thing she wants to tell from the team's perspective, and that's it.
Over the 2 months of preparation, the teams involved volunteered 350 hours to make this program a reality. To this day, many of the teams will say that Life-Size Arkham was one of their favorite library programs of all time. In fact, many will tell you that the actual making of the program was even more memorable because they put in a lot of work that they got to see come alive.
And so that's basically just our quick wrap-up of how we did Arkham and everything. Like I said, there's the link to the photo album, and you can feel free to email me, and I can talk to Keyahna and my other teams, too, to help answer any questions that you might have about doing such a program. So thank you.
Thank you, Lindsey. We do have a question. This sounds like, I'm personally not familiar with this game. It sounds like a few other people viewing the program aren't either. And so the question is, how do you introduce a complicated game like this with this extensive backstory to teens who might not be familiar with it without scaring them off in terms of the extensive rules?
What we found was it was my boyfriend and I that actually, introduced them, and the game box alone is what triggered their interest, because they're like, oh, that looks totally different. That looks different from like Monopoly or Connect Four or anything. What is this, And they were just intrigued by what it looked like. And I think, surprisingly, you might think that a lot of teams would actually be scared off, but they're actually really, really interested in it. And you've got a lot of gamers out there that, you don't know are gamers. They might not even know that they themselves are gamers and would like it. We've got an overwhelming number of girls who love Arkham when you'd think it'd be like a boy thing. And so basically what is always best is to have somebody that, is, very, very familiar with the rules. So, if you're wanting to offer this to your teams, get a group of your friends together and play it a number of times before you attempt to show them how to do it, and just walk them through it step by step, as the first time you get together and play. And like I said, if they're interested in it, they'll stick with it. And, surprisingly, they catch on to the rules pretty quickly. And, there's always, with complex games like this, too, you can always play by house rules, too, where you introduce them to just some of the basic rules, and they play the game that way for a while, and then you start adding other little elements into it, too. Like, for example, an easy one is the monsters. Some monsters, you can't fight them with physical weapons. You have to fight them with magic spells. Well, when you first play, you can just say any of your weapons will work, so that you can actually get the feel of how to actually go about fighting a monster. And then as they get more familiar with that, you can incorporate those actual special rules, and say, okay, this monster, we can use magic on him, and, you'll find that they will catch on to it pretty quickly. I'm surprised one of my girls who has a number of learning disabilities is probably one who actually knows the rules the best out of anybody. So, just they're interested, give them a try, and, have at it with them and encourage them, and they will probably take to it very surprisingly.
Great. Thank you so much. I do see some more questions coming in, but in the interest of time, we're going to keep on moving, and like I said before, we'll get to the rest of those questions in the email follow-up. At this point, we're going to turn it over to Eli Neiburger.
Hi, how's everybody doing? Thanks a lot for the opportunity to talk with you about all this stuff. I'm Eli Neiburger. I'm a Deputy Director at the Ann Arbor District Library. I'm Ulotricus on Twitter. And going to talk a little bit today specifically about video game events and why you should have video game events and what exactly that should look like. And just to pick up a little bit on what Amanda had said is that one way that I like to look at this is that humans are the only creatures on Earth who make a distinction between play and learning. For everything else on the earth that is able to learn, play is how they learn. So it was only sort of humans with our big structures and our curricula and our legislative interference and all that kind of crap that got us to this point where we see play and learning as not just the same thing, but as actual, enemies of each other. And, chess has been around for such a long time that it was a scholarly pursuit. Games were something that people could study and learn. And, that is not anything new to our culture for games to be a big and major part of how people learn and how they explore ideas and how they simulate different things. And, of course, now this is a screenshot of EVE Online, which is a huge multiplayer game. Simulations have become so complex that board games can't really track them. And a lot of modern board games have so many pieces and parts because most of that is dedicated to keeping track of the state of the game. And one thing that I just want to say, board games are such a great place to start, and especially very popular with the existing audiences that libraries typically have. And it's a relatively low-tech and easy way to get into things. However, that's a niche in our society. And when you look at the percentage of people in our society that are playing video games, as Amanda said, there are a lot of adult women playing video games. In fact, there are more adult women playing video games in the United States than teenage boys. That's not something that people typically think about. But the complexity is getting to the point that these are becoming extremely mainstream activities. And it's very important that libraries right now don't fall into the trap of mistaking the niche for the mainstream. Libraries are very good at serving small niches of interest, but it's the mainstream that we really got to get to, and the mainstream is interested in video games. But the big challenge is, how can a library add value to a video game experience? We've been doing video game tournaments at AEDL now for 11 years. Our first tournament was in 2004, and at the beginning, being able to play video games against other live people was a lot more of a unique experience. Over time, as Xbox Live and other sorts of online gaming systems became more ubiquitous, just being able to play against other people stopped being such a unique experience. So we had to kind of shift gears, find new ways to add value to the program, because, even something like League of Legends, and League of Legends is a very popular game with boys and is hugely popular. However, it's very difficult for a library to add value to the experience of playing League of Legends, because it's not much better to play in a room with your friends because they're always doing it with team chat. They're talking to each other even when they're all in their own homes. And the game's already free. So it's a difficult thing for libraries to really add value to. So I really focus on video game events that add value. And partially, just one thing to touch on really quickly is that the challenge, a lot of times libraries say, video games, let's do something with video games. Let's circulate video games, and that can certainly work. However, as Amanda said, one of their most successful titles circulated 19 times in a year. So it reached 19 people in that same year. Well, that same one copy of one game can reach 19 people in a single afternoon at a video game event. So especially if you don't have a lot of money to throw at it, having a video game events, even if they're only monthly, are we still, 10 years later, we do video game events monthly, and it's a big, vibrant community. Your money will go further with events than it will with circulating collections. You'll reach more people, and most importantly, you'll reach more new library users. Because, as we always are easy for us to forget as library people, is that using the library can be an intimidating and forbidding thing. And many people who want to use the library can't use the library because, as we all know, their parents used their card and ran up fines, and now they can't use their card. So it's great to be able to have events as an experience, and the life-size gaming is a great example of a unique experience that you can't get anywhere else. So how do you take commercial games and make them into an experience that people can't get anywhere else? Well, for a long time, we were doing Dance Dance Revolution and Rock Band tournaments. That was very intense for a small number of years, and then it pretty much evaporated completely. But what we added was the performative aspect that they've always wanted. It was a Dance Dance Revolution tournament. We had nice game, dance pads. We'd have them set up, and they danced in front of the entire crowd. It was a very engaging and unique opportunity that they couldn't get anywhere else. As that started to fall away, then we moved on to Mario Kart and Smash Brothers. And one of the big things about Mario Kart and Smash Brothers specifically, they really are intergenerational because they're very popular with, 40-somethings as well as with their kids. Mario Kart is an excellent all-ages experience. And while you can play at home online, it's very exciting to be a part of a tournament. Not just, hey, here's our Mario Kart system, come and play it. But it's like, here, come play Mario Kart in front of everybody and have a great time and play against new people. That's what the library can offer. Similarly, Pokemon gives a really great opportunity. Pokemon is one of the most complex things that kids do for fun. And a lot of times, especially, it's a great opportunity for libraries to distinguish themselves from schools. Because in a lot of schools, Pokemon is banned because it causes so many problems, even though it is the most cognitively challenging things in a lot of kids' lives. Pokemon is banned in many schools. So the library gets to say, this is the place where we embrace Pokemon. We love Pokemon. And while Pokemon is very much kind of a solitary activity, being able to battle like they do on the cartoon show and play against each other is so fun and so engaging. And for a while, that was really great because there was a Wii version called Pokemon Battle Revolution that let them have their own Pokemons that they'd nurtured and cared and trained fight against each other. But now there's not a version like that. What there is now, and this is something that everyone should take a look at, is Pokemon Showdown. And that's just what it's called, Pokemon Showdown. It's a free online battle simulator that anyone can play. And one of the great things about it is that it offers a completely random party of Pokemon, so it's a much better equalizer, where it's all about your skill and your knowledge and not so much about how many hours you've poured into the game. So check out Pokemon Showdown. At AADL, we're actually operating a Pokemon Showdown server that makes it very unique opportunity for kids to be able to play against each other, climb the ladder, and have a great opportunity playing against Pokemon players in their town. And this is all the video game. There's also the whole card game side of it, which is a whole other thing. The problem with the card game side of it is, as a deck-building game, it favors the kids who have disposable incomes. And at libraries, we really try to avoid events that privilege the kids with privilege. We want to try to even out the playing field. Another great example of a game that we've done a lot of is Kerbal Space Program, which is an outstanding space simulator. You got to build a rocket ship and try to fly it into space. It's very sort of realistic physics, and a lot of times it totally doesn't work. You put your ship, you build it on the pad, and then it falls apart and your Kerbals die. They scream. It's exciting. It's very funny. But we take this game and add an element to it of having a room full of kids all trying to play it at the same time and see who can achieve certain goals first, who can make it to the moon fastest, who can hit the moon fastest, who can bring a Kerbal back alive from the moon fastest, which is a different challenge to be able to bring a Kerbal to the moon and back safely alive. And this is actually the moon of Jewel, one of the other planets in the Kerbal system. And while we don't do this because of what kids learn from it, the fact is, this game teaches orbital mechanics in a way that makes a lot of intuitive sense, and it's really powerful to learn about this. And you're going to see an entire generation of aeronautical engineers that grew up playing Kerbal Space Program and getting really into it. So that's a wonderful thing to do. Also, the demo is free, so you can download it, and the demo is all you need to do a really great Kerbal event. So if you've got a computer lab, even with relatively old computers, it'll still work pretty well. Kerbal Space Program is a great option for it. And of course, there's Minecraft. Minecraft is still very big, but I think we've definitely reached peak Minecraft, and it's starting to recede a little bit. I would take issue with the challenge that League of Legends is the next Minecraft, mostly because Minecraft is a lot bigger across both genders in a way that League of Legends really doesn't reach. League of Legends is so intensely competitive, it's very appealing to a certain age of boy, whereas Minecraft has so much more to offer for a wide range of people. So one of the things that we did is we set up a Minecraft server, loaded a map of Ann Arbor into into it, encouraged our players to come build a model of Ann Arbor. And that's exactly what they did. They built a model of our city. And it's really cool. One of the first things they built was our library, and on the inside of the library are shark tanks and roller coasters. And it's so great. It's super fun, very creative. Here's the shark tank deep inside the library. It's a lot of fun. Somebody put in the teen magazine section. There's all kinds of great stuff in the library. Somebody built my office. It's super fun. And having just an event where everybody comes together and plays Minecraft together can be very fun. The challenge is Minecraft requires a license to be able to play. It's $25 per license. However, there's Minecraft Edu, which is an educational version of Minecraft, which can be set up so it doesn't require a login. However, lots of kids have these. It's great if the library has a few of them so that kids who don't have a license can still play. But then there's a competitive element of Minecraft, and that is there's a super great module for Minecraft called Survival Games, which is really basically Hunger Games in Minecraft. So, of course, kids get into this hugely because it's super fun. It's very exciting. It's very much like the Hunger Games. You got the cornucopia, you got the death and destruction, all that kind of stuff, but it's not graphic, and it's really easy for kids of all ages to get into it, and it's a lot of fun to play. It's very and so last year for International Gaming Day, AEDL ran an International Minecraft Hunger Games event where libraries all around the world could be given access to a Minecraft server at no charge, run events at their library to select their local tribute, and then the tributes all advanced to compete against each other. We had a playoff in Australia, we had a playoff in Europe, and then the winners from the Europe and the Australian districts went on to face the American district, and the winner was a 13-year-old girl from Providence, Rhode Island. And it was a super great event. We are repeating it this year for International Gaming Day. You can find out more about it at International Gaming Day on the web under ALA's site. What's so entertaining to me about this is that, you can't do really a Team Fortress tournament at a library. Team Fortress is a really fun shooter, but it's something that a lot of people get kind of nervous about because it's shooting and guns and that kind of thing. But it's totally okay to have children fight to the death because it's from a book. Isn't that excellent? It's from a book, so we get to have this bloodbath inside our libraries. Now, the other side of it is how you can use games as events for learning software development and coding. Scratch is a very free, very simple software development environment that is available to anyone and very accessible, even to 3, 4, 5-year-olds sometimes with help. And you can make pretty complex games. You can have a little contest for who can make the best game in a couple hours, sort of a mini game jam. All very easy stuff to do. Scratch is definitely something to look at and a great way to sort of get kids in there whose parents won't let them do things that seem like they're too fun. Then, hey, this is learning. They're learning to do software development. But the biggest thing for gaming for us is really our summer game, which is going on right now. It's sort of a successor of the summer reading game. It's all about badges and puzzles and quests and all that kind of stuff. You can see these are some badges from a couple years ago. And this is all ages. We have 5,000 players playing it this summer of all ages, adults, kids, everything. And it's been such a powerful way to engage a really intense audience. It basically recognized that reading is only a part of what goes on in the library, and that we want to incentivize people to do all kinds of activities, not just reading. And by taking the word reading out of our summer reading game, everybody read a lot more. Shocker. It's a tough thing to lead with, especially because, as Amanda and a couple other presenters have talked about, gaming requires reading. It requires advanced literacy, and it gives people a framework upon which to hang that advanced literacy and apply those skills. So with our summer game, one of the best things about that is that then it grew into our Point-O-Matic Clickatron game, which is how we make patrons do work for free. They review our ratings. They tell us, yes, this is helpful, or no, this isn't helpful for reviews. They get points for reviewing ratings. They get points for tagging old photographs. They even get points for doing OCR correction from our newspaper databases. So this is advanced stuff, clearly, but it's also very powerful ways to use gaming to incentivize people, and people just go crazy for it. It's so great and so fun. So I would recommend for any library of any size, try a gaming event. Try looking for ways to make this fun. The life-size games are a great place to start. Life-size Candyland is a good place to start for the younger kids, and then the other bigger games are also a great thing. So if you want to know details about how to run a video game tournament at your library, I have a book from 2007, Gamers in the Library from ALA. It has very detailed instructions about how to run tournaments. Also, I want to just put in a quick plug for the Games and Gaming Roundtable, the American Library Association. There's a lot of great resources, a lot of great people involved. It's a great way to get more information about all this. And the most important thing you can do is find the gamers in your community and let them loose. Just like we heard from the last talk. engage your kids and let them drive it. All you need to really provide is the space and sometimes a little bit of money. So that's kind of a whirlwind tour of video games in the library. I'm Eli. You can contact me via email at eli@eliworks.com. Find me on Twitter at @Ulotricus. Follow my library at AEDL. And GT System, which is our system for running video game tournaments, including the International Minecraft Hunger Games, on the web at GT System, as well as gtsystem.org. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Eli. A couple nuts and bolts kinds of questions for you. When you have gaming programs at your library, how often do they usually last?
How long do they last? You need to plan at least 3 hours. Program? Yeah, you have to plan at least 3 hours for a video game program. And, you know, often if you have the luxury of enough stations, enough hardware, we will often have some of the hardware for open play and some of the hardware for a tournament so that people who come late can still get to do something. Depends on what age you're targeting. But generally 3 hours is a pretty good guideline.
Okay, and then do you have a preferred game system for libraries to start with?
I would absolutely recommend Wii U. Wii U reaches the broadest audience. If you get a PS4 or an Xbox, you're going to reach an intense, hardcore audience. But you know what? Those kids are pains in the ass. And what you want is a really broad, wide-reaching audience. You want to reach as many people in your community as you can. And Wii U is really the key for that in terms of having intergenerational gaming. It's cheap to get into it. And one game I didn't even mention is Splatoon. Nintendo just reinvented the shooter and made it about shooting ink instead of shooting people. And it's genius. It's for all ages. And they've just released a mode that's perfect for libraries where you can have 4 Wii U's and the 4 players can have an experience that they can't have any other way.
Thank you so much. This has been very informative. All right,
Thank you.
There are, like with the others, there are some questions that hopefully you can answer in the follow-up email.
Sure.
Okay, we're moving on to our last presentation of the day. Faythe, or of this session. There's plenty more SummerTeen to come. So Faythe Arredondo is here to round out the presentation.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. Hope you're hanging on okay. I'm going to talk about my library and how gaming actually started. It was kind of really organic, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So I currently am the Teen Services Librarian for Tulare County, which is in Central California. We're, the branch that I work at is Visalia. It's basically at the bottom of Sequoia National Park. So that gives you a clue as to where we're at. We're actually really rural. We have a lot of poor communities in our library system. So we're always looking for ways to be inclusive for our patrons who don't have internet access at home, either because they can't afford it or because broadband doesn't reach their locations. So when I started at my library 4 years ago, there was no teen services at all. There were books for them, but there was nothing there. So I started a tag, and I did icebreakers. I was trying to get them to express themselves. So, and they loved them. They just loved them. So we did 6-word memoirs, which they loved too. They requested doing that all the time. And I bought that book, Go Ahead, Ask Me. It's just full of questions. It's a little dated, so I'm hoping they up-to-date it soon because it has some, like, you know, Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera. And while that was great in the early 2000s when these kids were born, I don't think it quite has the powerful impact as it once did. During our lock-in, we did Never Have I Ever, but we played with fingers. You put your 10 fingers up, and everybody went around and just said, never have I ever, you know, ridden a bicycle, things like that. They were trying to knock everyone out. And just by doing these icebreakers, they were able to target people, as we called it, where they would say things that they know would only one person would be able to answer that question. So it became a lot of fun. And that kind of dissolved into 6-word horror stories. One teen couldn't stop, and she wrote them for like hours. So just little things like that is how it got started. So I noticed that they really enjoyed interacting and trying to guess who did what, you know, who wrote what and who did that, because we never had them read out loud. I read all the 6-word memoirs and all these things out loud, and they had to guess. And that kind of evolved into like, okay, well, I guess these kids like each other, so we started playing board games. And it evolved into apples to apples. Naturally, everyone has apples to apples, but my teens and I play it sarcastically. It's kind of like the PG version of Cards Against Humanity, but we played it to apples that way. And then I was trying to figure out what other games to get them, so I got them the logo game, which they absolutely love to play, but they suck at it. They will be the first to tell you that they suck at it. They don't know. They don't watch TV like we watch TV. They mostly watch online, Netflix, so they don't know ads like we do. I'm not allowed to play with them anymore because once they were halfway through the game and I started and I lapped them twice and I still won. So I was like, okay, well, these are a lot of fun. So what can we do next? Because they started talking about Magic, the Magic card game, but a lot of those kids in the library couldn't play that because they didn't have the extra money to go and buy card decks, and they didn't quite know how to start. So it was a couple of years ago, right when Will Wheaton had just launched his tabletop game on the YouTube. I can't remember what it's called. And I happened to check it out once, and there was Munchkin. So I was like, okay, since they like to threaten each other playing the logo game, I thought we could channel the energy into some more complex card games. So I bought them Munchkin, and they loved it. They absolutely loved it. They would sit there and they would play for hours. They would threaten each other, which was hilarious. They would bargain with each other. I'll give you this card if the next time I need help in a battle, you come help me, and things like that. It was great. Not all the teens would play, but the kids who didn't play loved being in the same room with the players because of just the trash talking that was happening. She's like, it's more fun to listen than it is to actually play. And after that, I got Axe Cop because Axe Cop is hilarious, and I loved playing Munchkin Axe Cop because it actually pulled in stuff from the comic book. And they were playing it, and that's about the time that the TV show premiered. And then one of the teens went out and bought Munchkin Cthulhu on his own. He went to the local gaming store and got that. And they just love playing these games. They love killing each other or bringing each other back to life or, threatening each other with, I'll kill you. Okay, I won't kill you this time, but please, but you got to help me when, the next time this comes. And it's crazy. You can pick different races and different appendages. I mean, it's hilarious. The tagline is just like, have fun killing your friends. So they went through that pretty quickly. So I started to research more games because I was like, this is awesome. I've got these kids, half of whom are readers, the other half who are gamers, and they love coming to the library and playing games with each other. And it doesn't always have to be video games. So I went and researched a lot more things, and it just got even more complex. One that they love to play, they like weird and fun things. They love the game Gloom. And the point of Gloom is to you personally want to die a horrible death. And you want to make everyone die a happy death. It's crazy things. Like you put cards, the cards are super cool. They're clear. And you'll put things like, oh, you frolicked with puppies. That's plus 10 for you. And then you want to fall down the stairs. It's fun. It's totally fun. The middle picture right there is actually one of my teens. She took a picture of it and they love playing it. They love killing each other, which sounds terrible, but it's fun. We actually started playing Gloom Fairy Tale, which brings in elements of fairy tales into Gloom. So now, which is good because it actually has more players. Because Gloom only has 4 players, and we actually had a Gloom tournament this summer, part of some summer reading program, and just the stuff. If you didn't know what was happening, they're like, I'm going to make sure that you die a really happy death. It was funny. I was glad nobody walked by and we did that. And they started playing Werewolf, which is an offshoot of the game Mafia, where they just sat around and killed each other. Again, I can notice a pattern here. And they told stories. So-and-so was walking down the street and a werewolf came out and grabbed them, but they were safe, whatever. They loved playing that game. Every time a tag meeting would end, they would ask, can we play Werewolf now? And I'd be like, yes, that's fine. So one day they were making up elaborate stories while playing Gloom, and we had one teen go off into the military this year, so we're kind of thinking of what to do as like an end of a summer party kind of early. And I said, what about Dungeons and Dragons? And we actually held an after-hours Dungeons and Dragons party. We were all learning together, so it was a lot of fun. We had one of the teens bring his friend who actually had played before. He helped the kids build their characters, and we played. And it took a while, but it was so amazing. They had so much fun. They threatened each other, now you cannot play Dungeons and Dragons until I come back. So half the teens are going to college this year, so I'm trying to figure out how to make it work. I wish I could show you the video of the last roll that we had, because these kids just flipped out, because by some miracle they were able to beat the Dungeon Master and win the game. And it was just amazing, just seeing these kids come together to the library and just want to play games with each other. I love that, and that every time they're here, that's what they want to do. And we do have gaming systems in the library that we do use, but they would rather do things like this. Can we play Gloom? Has a new Munchkin come out? Because there's a Munchkin, there's a new Munchkin coming out. I think it's Gloom Munchkin, actually. And that's all they asked me. Is it out yet? Can we play it yet? Is it here yet? Faythe, do you have it? Do you have it? So I just continue to do this. We play video games during the summer, and then after tag meetings or book clubs, we pull out all the board games, and it's so much fun, and I'm always looking for the next one. So if you have any questions or any suggestions, just email me or hit me up on Twitter. I'm there. I'm so happy to answer any of your questions, listen to your suggestions. I know I went through that really quickly because I know we're at the end and we have lots of questions. So that's it. That's all I have. Just contact me if you have any questions or suggestions, like I said.
Hello? Oh, are we back here? Sorry, I had a little switch there. Okay, another question that we had that it sounds like anyone could jump in to answer. How do you generate interest initially before you started your gaming programs? What kind of groundwork did you lay to help them be a success?
This is Faythe. I just talked to the teens. I noticed that there was one summer right after I started, one of the boys who was really quiet, he literally followed me around the library talking to me about a video game the whole time, like as I was like picking up books. And so I just asked them, you know, is this something you'd be interested in? I listened to them as I talked about video games, and they realized that we can't play some of the games inside the library. So this was kind of their compromise. Oh yeah, we'll play these. These are fine. They know we can't play Cards Against Humanity, but they want to. But I just talk to them. That's all I can do during my tag meetings. I ask them questions. Is this something you're interested in? Should I do this? So that's how I did it.
This is Eli. I just want to add that one of the ways to attract a large audience is to start with things that are very popular. And then you can work with that audience towards the things that aren't as popular, just like the rest of the collection. You know, none of us really want to have some of that garbage, but we buy it because people want it. So getting some of the really popular stuff as a starting point helps you build an audience that makes it easier to innovate.
Anyone else want to chime in on that, getting that initial group together question? Personally, I'm planning on poaching from the high school gaming club that's happening down the street from us and targeting them hard with promotional flyers and whatnot. A couple more questions. I think we have a few more minutes. Does anyone see a difference between the way that middle school kids, grades 5 through 8, say, approach gaming differently than the high school crowd?
This is Eli again. We try really hard for all of our events to be all ages. And sometimes it takes a little bit of work because generally the biggest problem is that if you have too many tweens, the real teens are going to think that it's a kid event. Aside from that, though, if the competition is stiff enough, people will still be really excited to participate in it. As far as how you approach them, it's not really that different. In most cases, they like the same games. And in many cases, they're even competitive with each other in a way that they wouldn't be in sports. So I don't think it's really different, other than in some cases you might be willing to approach slightly more grown-up subject matter. But generally, I think that so many things at the library work best when they're all ages. It turns a 10-person program into a 40-person program.
Any other comments on the age division? Would anyone like to comment on funding for game programs? Games do get kind of expensive. Has anyone found creative funding methods for that?
This is Amanda speaking. We actually are involved in a few different grants that are local that allow for edgy technology, essentially. So we're able to buy collections for all of our member libraries to kind of pool together in a way so they all share the gaming resources.
Anyone else?
This is Faythe. We have a really active and supportive friends group, and we were able to get some of the games because there are some I bought Ticket to Ride for my teens, and they did not want to play it at all, and that was a pretty expensive game. So that's why I've tried to keep it to like the Glooms, which are $15, and Munchkin, which is like $15 to $20. I try to keep it in those ranges, but I'm able to do so with my friends, and my admin's really supportive because they know how hard it is for teens in our communities. They're really excited that they're here, so they're pretty supportive about me buying those games when I can. I don't buy them all the time. I have like 10, and I've been here 4 years.
I'd also like to add that if you think about purchasing games as part of your programming budget, this is how I've tried to approach it in my library. We don't think twice about purchasing craft supplies if we have craft programs at the library, or hiring a performer for the children's programming, and so trying to extend that generosity into teen events like gaming, I think, is something to consider. Okay, it looks like we're at time. We want to be sure everyone has time to explore the rest of the SummerTeen offerings. Keep in mind there's going to be a follow-up email answering the questions that we didn't get to. We want to thank our panelists and thank you, the audience. This webcast will be archived in about 72 hours and will be available for on-demand viewing for the next 12 months. Thanks again for attending today, and please be sure to visit our sponsors and thank them for sharing their authors with us today. Thanks and have a great day.